Hi, everybody. So, before we start this off, I had a few thoughts leaving the theater. A, there's few people that make sure that their special effects look as good as they do before they leave their products than James Gunn. I've never been upset with a single thing that has been put in a James Gunn movie as far as special effects go. B, this is for sure my favorite MCU trilogy. Cap is my favorite character, but this trilogy is better. And that's for personal reasons for a lot of things that James likes to put in his movies. And C, and I mean this with all my heart, completely. Anyone, and I mean anyone, who has just finished watching this trilogy and thinks that James Gunn cannot understand, harness, properly write, or direct all the heart it would take to put together a modern Superman film is a fucking moron.
This 1,000 goddamn percent this.
If anyone thinks that James Gunn does not know how to interject heart and soul into a film to get pure feels out of a human being, you're an idiot.
This has been true since 2014.
I just don't get it anymore. I just don't. How do you keep watching these films and think, well, they all got all this dumb humpty bump stuff in it? Because that's what the film is asking for.
Not only that, but I think people misunderstand the use of humor in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That these characters are all they're all running from parts of themselves. Like they all have baggage, they all have chips on their shoulder. That's why they came together as a team and eventually as a family.
Exactly. They're all completely screwed up in their own little special ways. And you finally get to see them dealing with it. And in a way that's honest. And I don't think people like that. But the dumbest, we're going to go into what we liked about this movie, but I have to get the dumbest complaint I've heard out of my entire life. That I think the biggest misunderstanding of what someone was to expect from a movie, I think, was in this movie. Before we saw a single shot of the entire film at all, no still, no concept art, nothing. We heard from James Gunn that this film was going to directly involve, detail, and explain Rocket's backstory. And I don't know if y'all watched the first two films. Rocket, from all intents and purposes, has been made it very blatant that he didn't have a good upbringing. How were you shocked there was animal cruelty in this movie?
Yeah, that is...
How? How? Tell me how. Put them in the comments. I need to know.
I'm remembering the line that Rocket says in the first movie where he says, like, I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask to be made into this abomination.
Yeah. I just don't get it. They're like, I didn't expect it to be so creepy and this and that. And them talking about how this character has a god complex and wants to make his own. What did you think was going to happen? What movie were you walking into?
I don't get it, man.
Like, come on! It blows my mind sometimes with people where they're just like, I knew exactly what the movie was, and then I went in and I didn't get what I wanted. I just don't get it. Like in Top Gun, there wasn't a single scene where aliens shot at each other with squirt guns. I just don't get it. It's what I wanted. Why wasn't it there?
Good Lord.
What? Come on. Anyway, I will tell you I didn't expect Rocket to be basically out of commission in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, that's like the only thing that like genuinely surprised me because I knew I knew from a lot of non-spoiler reviews and the very few spoilers that I accidentally exposed myself to that there was going to be a lot of flashback scenes. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's not a spoiler to say that Rocket's backstory was going to be explored.
Yeah.
However, I think the way they did it was kind of perfect.
Yep. It's the best way to do it. Get scenes that match up current ways and etch it as it goes along. I will. And the problem kind of started right away in the movie. My legit biggest gripe I have with this movie, and I'm going to leave it up to maybe that I don't know if it was up to James to have the character in the movie in the first place. Adam Warlock and the Sovereign in this movie might be the biggest. I don't know why they're in this film in the first place in all of the Marvel films.
You know what? The only reason I don't fully agree with that is because I I do kind of like the I do kind of like Will Poulter's himbo version of the character.
Oh, I like him too. I absolutely do, but like it's every 10 minutes he comes up, bah! And then there's an excuse for him to leave. Like, I think he has 10 lines in the whole movie, and he was the end credit scene of Guardians 2.
Part of me is wondering if
Like, Manny, I'd rather have this animal cruelty than seeing a dog getting shot or stabbed. Me too.
same. But going back to Warlock for a second, I think part of the reason why a lot of these like what a part of the reason why these movies aren't like 100% standalone is because there are like a few Marvel cosmic elements that had to be thrown in. Like in the first movie, they had to explain the Infinity Stones. Thanos made an appearance. In the second movie, that one outside of teasing Adam Warlock is probably the most standalone entry out of the entire
It is.
MCU.
Because nothing really carries over.
Yeah,
The
and
only thing that carried over was from the first movie when you explored what was weird about him and why he could hold an Infinity Stone.
yeah. And then this movie obviously picks up where Endgame leaves off.
Mm-hmm.
And also some story beats from the holiday special.
Yeah.
So I like those are the extent of my minor nitpicks that as great as this movie is, and this movie is phenomenal, it doesn't 100% stand on its own. So know that going in, but don't treat what came before as homework. Treat it like you're treating yourself to great movies.
I'm going to be honest. Outside of needing to know that what happened with Gamora, a good chunk of this could get explained on its own. Because let's be real here. Drax had some stuff. Nebula had some stuff. But also, going to be honest. If you're the third movie in a trilogy and someone's complaint is that you can't watch it as a standalone film,
I get that. Like
come on.
I get that much. I'm talking about because this is part of a larger universe.
Okay, I guess, yeah. But yeah, outside of Gamora dying in Infinity War, everything else you could get from the previous Guardians films.
Well, there's one thing from the holiday special that
well, Guardians things. That's a Guardians thing.
Okay, fair.
Like anything that has to do with Guardians, you could get from Guardians. Like outside of what happened with Gamora. Like that's the only big. You're telling me no, it does not pick up after Love and Thunder. Although I would have loved to have seen oh dang it, what's his name? Roy Kent, the actor that plays Roy Kent.
Brett Goldstein.
Brett Goldstein. I want to see more Brett Goldstein. I hope he becomes a giant character that is seen in a bunch of movies because I love that guy. I know him from nothing other than Ted Lasso, but I love that guy. I don't know which one of you are just nutted because I can't see so much well at night, but fucking leave him alone. Stop messing with Nate. I love Roy Kent. But okay, anyways, so Rocket gets wrecked and we find out that he has a failsafe on his heart that he can't get med packs, which is the most Resident Evil first aid spray thing I have ever seen in a movie in my life.
I knew you'd pick up something like that. I
like this is Resident Evil, and for you, this is Dragon Ball Sensu beans. This is pretty much what this is.
You know what? I'll say this. Speaking of speculative influences, I asked James Gunn on Twitter, like, because he's doing a little Q&A, if he was at least indirectly inspired by Lilo and Stitch because of A, the fact that Rocket and his friends have like serial numbers.
Yeah.
And B, that like the high evolutionary, he has a single track mind as a villain. He wants his toys back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I saw a bit of Cronenberg's. Yeah. Cronenberg, just a touch. But yeah, and I like that was a cool way to do it, how they didn't have to, that they found it out on accident. I thought that was really cool how this entire plot happens because Rocket got attacked.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how everything is developed in nowhere is pretty great. And how Quill is obviously not okay. I would have loved if for 2 seconds you would have gotten like a phone call from Kevin Bacon. But other than that, like everything, it was really good. And it shows that like out of all of them, where they're like jokingly trying to figure out who Quill's best friend is. And like the whole this is the most well-written family that Marvel's got.
Yeah.
And like everyone has their good supporting characters, but this one genuinely feels like a family of people that have gone to family occasions for 16 years when realistically they've known each other for like 4, maybe.
Speaking of an ensemble cast, I'm just going to take a quick detour to say how potentially excited I am to see
Vin Diesel's triggered right now.
I just want to say how potentially excited I am at James Gunn writing the bullpen at the Daily Planet.
Yeah. Or James Gunn writing the relationship between Clark and Ma Kent.
Yeah.
I want some moments like from the animated movies about how she's worried he's going to catch a cold and he says, "Mom, I'm an alien," and she says, "And I'm your mother."
Yes.
I want some of those moments. And by the last scene in this movie, you're going to get them.
We'll get to the last scene later because
But
yeah, going back to the rest of the core cast, I really do feel like everyone was at the top of their game.
Mm-hmm.
Like Drax is the comic relief, but here you get to see a little bit of a return to his like sentimental side, and we've forgotten because it's been like 9 years, but he was a father who lost his children and his wife to Thanos.
Mm-hmm. And this is like coming from a guy that watched WWE religiously for the reason for in the time frame that Dave was a full-time wrestler, seeing that I knew this guy had the chops, but I like maybe didn't believe that he had the possibility to do this until like The Rock and Cena and some other people started doing this stuff. And then seeing comments from like Kevin Feige saying that like Dave is one of the most talented people he's gotten to work with. Dave has always had the possibility to be whatever he is needed in a scene. And I'm so happy that he's finally getting these flowers because this is genuinely one of the nicest dudes I've ever heard of or heard about in Hollywood. And seeing him like work hard, he'll openly admit that he's never going to win an Oscar. You will hear that from Dave, but he will tell you he's going to be one of the people working his damnedest to make sure that whenever he's in a film, he's going to do the best that he can in said film.
You know what?
And just you see it.
I think one day he will win an Oscar. It won't be like tomorrow. It won't be in the next 5 years, but 10 years probably.
He's open about how he's consistently going to acting classes and always working on himself. He's putting the wrestling mentality that he had forward into acting. And I'll be honest, he's been doing this an eighth of the amount of the time The Rock has, and he's already a better actor than he is.
Agreed.
He's the best wrestler turned actor there is by a wide margin. I mean, you got 3 examples. Well, 4. Edge has done acting. Adam Copeland. It's been mostly on TV. He's pretty good. Honestly, to say The Rock's the worst. That's kind of weird me thinking about it now.
Right?
But I honestly would put Cena, Edge, and Batista above him. But getting Oscar for selling those Rhino boner pills and glass onion.
Oh, God.
But anyway, he's good. Karen Gillian as Nova, spectacular. Freaking Palm Clementov as Mantis. Everyone is their own special type of broken in these films, and they have their own dialects, and like no one ever feels like they break character. That's the best part. Everyone has these moments that just come out of nowhere, and they never feel like that character shouldn't have that moment.
Everyone feels like they're you know when you step on a hose and all of the water is like, you know, just waiting to burst out. That is essentially how everyone in this movie acts until their release. And I think Mantis has one of the best examples of that later on in the film.
Oh, absolutely. Her and Drax, I want ever since like the movies obviously, but ever since we got the holiday special, those two need to have a spin-off movie. Like I don't know how you do it, but like the moments to where they're like, "Oh, we're back to acting like Ramin again." Mantis, you asshole! Where are we going to? No, we're just gonna ride. We're just gonna ride back to the ship. Just right over there, right? Drax, this isn't funny!
Oh, God.
But it's just like, what are we even? Good Lord. But yeah, they... Correct me if I'm wrong, and I have, like, they go along with the Ravagers, which we find out that's where, Gamora is. And she's got her own little thing going on there. And I like the progress as they go along. And a scene between them at the end. Woo! Oh, it was great. But you find out that she's with the Ravagers. So it makes a ton of sense. This version of Gamora, who kind of got away from Thanos, but didn't get away from him for a good reason, I should say. Like, it's not a bad reason, but it was not a super... like altruistic reason. It makes a ton of sense that Ravagers would be where she would end up. And they're going to go pick up to see if they have the codes for this at this organic place. And then I have a feeling that one of James Gunn's kids played Among Us before he made that scene.
Oh, you're talking about the suits they have to wear?
Space suits. I'm like, guys, we're not even faking it at this point. But wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm pretty sure Nathan Fillion's been a character in every single Guardians film. He was the guy that tries to accost them in the first one and then gets like lifted by his nostrils by Groot in the first one. And then isn't he, or wasn't he supposed to be?
He was. I don't
Supposed to be
remember
Wonder Man.
I don't remember who he was supposed to be in the second, but he was cut from the film.
I want to say he was on posters for Wonder Man movies.
That sounds correct. I'm
supposed to be in Guardians 2. Yeah, in the sequel, Fillion was supposed to appear as Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, but the scene was eventually cut. So then he ends up being Master Karja, who is just Nathan Fillion in a suit. It was just kind of like, he had to get him in there.
That like the suit he's wearing looks so like foamy, and it's like so obviously a costume, but at the same time it kind of works with the tone of the movie that I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah, that whole thing was just James Gunn is getting to be as weird as he wants for this film. And no one's saying anything. Like, I had a friend that kind of thought at moments that this film should have been rated R. And, like, I always have to explain to people that the MPAA is always like, guess what? As long as there's not blood in it, it's fine. And they're like, well, what's a good example for that? I'm like, for all of you that were lucky enough to not watch the later Transformers films, thank you. But, in the third one, Optimus Prime grabs Sentinel Prime on a bridge, grabs him by the neck, and rips his head along with his spinal cord clean out of the body, and castor oil and fuel and sparks and all this stuff fall off, and he sits there posed with the dead spinal column and head of his opponent. Do you know why it's not rated R?
Because not blood.
No blood. There's no blood. And they're like, that's the reason? I'm like, yes. The original Avengers cut was rated X because of the blood amount involved in Coulson getting stabbed. The MPAA is really weird about blood, but will let a lot of other stuff go. Like, in the beginning, when Nebula gets wrecked, and you see this horror film version of her body auto-contorting back into what it needs to, one of my best friends, Alexa, is in the corner just like, oh, like cowering in fear at the sight of this. And I'm like, what's going? Okay, I'm like, I can kind of see why that would trigger some people because that is body horror to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't as big as a deal for me. I had cousins that were 16 years older than me that helped babysit me during my parents' divorce. And I watched Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street when I was like 8 years old. Was that a positive growth for me at all points? No, but all that stuff just didn't bug me anymore.
Also, like a lot of the body horror that we see, at least of like Rocket and his group of friends, that's mostly like implied. Like they look grotesque in many ways, but at least you're not always like seeing how they got to be that way.
Yeah, like Floor and Layla especially. Like Floor looks. You want to know what it reminded me of? The go ahead. I bet you know exactly what it is.
The baby on the spider head from Toy Story.
Yes, it hit me immediately. I'm like, who's the guy that looks like Sid that's gonna walk around? Where is he? It's exactly what it reminded me of. And I'm like, you can't tell me that wasn't intentional. I bet he had the other three made, and he was kind of like, this is I can easily throw a Toy Story reference in here. But yeah, that was kind of nuts. And then we start to see the development with Gamora. Going back to that scene, we start to see the development with Gamora kind of finally trying to bitch out Quill about she's not who he thinks she is. And the not wanting to kill people, but also showing that Quill is not such a sentimental moron that he won't fail a mission. That scene where he's like, let me talk to them, I'll figure this out. He's like, no, I wasn't that stupid. Da-da-da. Whoop! They hit the gravity.
Oh, that was so good.
That was phenomenal.
I think something that I like about this movie in particular, more so than the first two, is like maybe it's because of his experience with the Avengers in Infinity War and Endgame. Like he's kind of shown he's proven that he's, you know, an actual hero, and he's not someone to underestimate.
He is, and he's not to be and James Gunn hates a scene, and I do too, the most dumbly written scene in all of Marvel, and I mean this with all of my soul, is when you have Peter Quill single-handedly be the excuse why we got Endgame. That scene is unbelievably stupid. Wait, hold on. I understand. He's emotional. I get that too. If someone was speaking to me about my recently departed anything, if my mother had just died and it was that dude's fault, you know what I would have done in Peter's position? I would have waited until he was defenseless and then beat the shit out of him along with my 7 superpowered friends. I wouldn't have punched my friend in the hand that was holding him still while we had the entire fate of the universe at stake. I'm sorry, you ruined the motivations of a character because you couldn't think of a better way to get a sequel in that situation. That was very dumb. And he couldn't punch him anywhere other than where Mantis's hands were. He couldn't have helped either of them get the gauntlet off. Anything. No. The only excuse for Peter to be there was to make them fail.
I'm sure we can come up with a better way to have the Avengers fail the mission, but yeah, looking back, I get why Gunn was like, I would have done something different.
Yeah. And you know what you don't see? The Russos defending that scene.
Yeah, they've been pretty quiet about that.
Because a lot of people made a lot of noise about it and they never defended it. But anyway, so you show that like he can deal with his emotions and all this. And they get out. Getting to see also, who does Young Rocket?
Let me pull this up. So Young Rocket is actually Sean Gunn.
It is Sean Gunn. Okay. Like the voice?
Yeah. Baby Rocket is Noah Raskin.
Okay. Also, I didn't realize this until they were showing stuff. That weird dumb head that is just floating is voiced by Tara Strong in this movie. In the last movie, it was voiced by Miley Cyrus.
Oh yeah.
Huh?
So that's 2 characters that Tara Strong voices in the Guardians movies, because she's also Floor.
Yeah. And she's also Miss Minutes.
So that's 3 total in the MCU.
I'm going to wait until she's an actual physical person that she plays, because guess what? Tara can actually act as well.
Yep. All voice actors can act, because a lot of them started off on stage first. At least like the old guard.
Yep, and especially now in video games, guess what? A lot of them do the motion capture of the characters also.
Yep.
It's acting, but screen captured. That's why everyone is just like, they're just doing voices. Shut the hell up.
Voice acting is acting. The only difference is like it's like exercising a different muscle.
And you only get to use this. You don't get to use facial expressions or your hands or body gestures. You have to use just this and make a character work. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, they have to do 100 lines in an hour. I have heard horror stories of how those recording sessions go and how you have to nail it on the first try. But anyway, so you get to see that the thing that made Rocket special, according to the High Evolutionary, who used to look normal, that it was his brain, and it helped him figure out how to make the people that the High Evolutionary is making not so aggressive. And did it in no time. So the High Evolutionary is literally just pissed that his toys aren't there, and that's the only reason he wants Rocket Brack, is because he wants his brain.
Yep. I love how simple his motivations are, but also how just bombastic he gets.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very classic sort of villain.
He is a oh dang it. He is an Incredibles villain.
Yep.
He is an Incredibles villain. And which works because honestly, outside of having gravity powers or manipulation, the dude's got nothing. Literally nothing. Once it gets into an actual physical altercation, he gets his ass whipped.
Which
single-handedly. It's so satisfying. It shows how much of a punk he was, that if he actually had to be put into a spot to defend himself, he is only picking on the weak. He is such a god complex character that it worked out perfect.
By the way, does anyone else find it weird that in the MCU we have a being as almighty as the High Evolutionary who is kind of an atheist?
It's one of those weird things where it's also kind of one of the weird things that Ridley Scott bumps into. That dude's an atheist. Go watch Alien Covenant once and explain to me how an atheist made a movie that is so closely tied with all sorts of biblical things on accident.
Sure.
But yeah, he's an atheist. I had the most confused event of my life watching Alien Covenant. A, because that movie's trash. B, because I don't know how an atheist wrote that movie. I don't know how. But anyway. But yeah, it is weird how atheist villains end up having the weird god complex and can't get away from it. They're like good people that are atheists. God, how do I want to say this? People that don't try to be villains but say they're atheists somehow quote God less than villains that are atheists. They become more Christian the more they have more Christian like bad version of Christian thoughts, the more they become a villain. They don't try to be an atheist. They try to become God, but their version of what they want God to be. They believe there is a God, it's just that it's them.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it.
Like people that believe life is this is a weird tangent. Like my favorite people everyone's allowed to believe what they want. I will never care. I myself a Christian. I don't care what you believe. You do what you got to do. I'm not one of those Christians. But my favorite thing is to listen to people that goes, yeah, man, life's a big simulation. It's this thing where there's just this guy who's in charge and just sets our lives out for how he wants them to be. It is a plan, and we're just pawns playing in it. But it's not God, though. No. It's a guy that acts exactly like God, but it's not God. Why can't it be God, though? Because then it wouldn't be how I explained it. I'm like, I don't think you're listening to how you're explaining that right now, because it sounds a lot like you think there's a God. It's just not a guy that makes you go to church on Sundays. Like, because that's how it's sounding. But anyway, back to Guardians. Yeah, he's a weird, exact version of how all these villains get. He's like, there's not a God, but if there was one, this is how I think he would act. But like to the point of where he has Counter Earth.
Counter Earth. It's so dumb. I love it, but it's dumb.
And it is the definition of, James, what are we calling that planet? Counter Earth. Why? Because it sounds stupid. But why? Because it sounds stupid. Because this villain would be dumb enough to call it Counter Earth. Why does he call it Counter Earth? Because he went to Earth once and thought those people were cool.
No, he thought
It's
the culture.
He
thought the culture was cool, but the people
cool, but the
needed
people were
work.
bad. And that is such an 80s villain motive. He's like, did you miss the point where the squid was selling meth? Did you forget that part? And he's just like, and then also, he wants to be God, but not take care of them. And that, like, Quill lets him know that there's a Kraken creature selling drugs to kids on a corner, and he's like, oh, I guess I gotta blow up the planet then. Oh, well, I'll try again later. What? How didn't you know? Do you never leave the building? fucking what?
He wants to play God, but doesn't know the rules.
No, he's the man. The Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy is built on absentee parents.
Yep.
But yeah, and you're getting throughout this whole film, you kind of see, it'd be weird to explain every branch in detail, but somehow every character had a branching plot narrative that all accumulated at the scene that we're probably going to talk about the most. But yeah, there's very few scenes, but the scenes take long, and they just have the flashbacks in between them. Then oh man, that scene, and it was the only scene that I saw before the movie, was the scene where they all talk about like what their names are going to be. I need James Gunn to write like a children's book, because like some of that dialogue belongs in like a motivational children's tale. Like, I understand it wouldn't be by these Cronenbergian-esque creatures that are sitting there, but
you know, this it's the combination of what Gunn wrote and how the voice actors deliver this.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Rocket is saying all like the stuff about, you know, we'll all fly away together into the great beautiful sky.
Yeah.
That's poetry, man.
It is. My name is Rocket. And like, I love it. And man, I love the definition. All these Marvel movies pay off everything. And we'll get to another one where he finally sees that fucking cage at the end. But so we kind of get the weird, okay, we're going to go to blank and blank. Hey, Sovereign and Adam, here's a call from Gamora on accident that makes up a spot where you can come into the movie again. And then go, bah! And then be out of the scene for another half an hour. love Will Poulter, but man, he keeps coming in, having a fight, getting punched, and waking up. It happens like 4 times.
I really am curious, like, who was it that told Gunn he had to use Adam Warlock?
Do you know what Warlock feels like in this movie?
Who?
Venom in Spider-Man 3.
Oh my God, you're right. It's always the threes, man.
It always is. And it's just like, I wonder if James was like, oh, I got an idea for him. And then all of a sudden he's like, no, I'm doing this Rocket story. And they're like, James, you have to put Adam in it. Fine. But, because,
Hold
okay,
on.
go
I
ahead.
need to get this off my chest. Will Poulter Superman? Question mark?
This is a weird thing, but I physically can't see Poulter as Superman. I know there's not supposed to be an exact look for a superhero, but I oddly don't see it with Poulter. Like, physically looking at him, the aura he gives off doesn't give me Superman.
He does have a little more of a Jimmy Olsen face.
Make him Jimmy Olsen oh my goodness, he'd be perfect. I want that right now. And you know, James Gunn's making the first Superman.
Exactly.
That's got a good chance of that happening.
and a lot of actually all of the Guardians cast said, "Oh yeah, I'll totally follow Gunn into the DC universe."
It's almost like he's a really likable guy that's good to work for.
I just had to get that off my chest because, like, Gunn is looking for someone a little bit younger to play the character. So,
man, Poulter would be so damn good as Jimmy Olsen.
He has the face, he has the hair, he has like a very specific energy that would be perfect for the character.
That might be the best. I never would have thought of that in a million years until someone proposes to me casting I've heard in a long time.
I also wouldn't be shocked if like Michael Rooker is Pa Kent.
Michael Rooker is Pa Kent or Perry White.
Ooh. Both of those are good.
But he'd probably be Pa Kent.
Probably.
He'd make a really good Pa Kent.
Getting back to Guardians though, something that I wish I get why we can't, but something I wish we had more time for was Cosmo and Kraglin.
He said I was a bad dog. Take it back. He said you not gonna take it back because everyone here knows you are a bad dog.
Cosmo is so perfect, and let me make sure I pronounce her name right. Maria Bakalova. She gives like she gives like the best performance for this version of Cosmo, who, you know, was called a bad dog once and lords it over Kraglin forever.
Because that's bordering on a racial slur for a dog. Like, people are just like, would it really be that upset? I'm like, what is the worst thing you can tell a dog that they're a bad dog? Like, and the best report is a good boy or a good dog. Like, it's literally almost a racial slur as far as the dog's concerned. And then we're getting ahead of ourselves because I was waiting because that actor is in every movie James does. And I was waiting. I was like, he's going to be either there for Kraglin or he's going to be there for Peter. And I was waiting and we finally got that scene and I was happy. But
you're talking about Lloyd Kaufman's appearance?
No. We said the actor's name.
Oh, right.
Mansoor Rooker. But
yeah, that's That was exactly what Kraglin needed to
And I was
be awesome.
I was waiting, and as soon as they all started invading nowhere, I'm like, that arrow's gonna start whooping some ass. But so we get there, and just the amount of sheer shenanigans that happen once they get on the actual planet is awesome. And I have to ask you, because they made a decent deal about letting people know that this was going to happen for the first time in an MCU movie. Did it feel weird where they dropped the F-bomb?
No, it honestly felt natural.
And like, here's the only thing. I expected it to be directed at the High Evolutionary.
Oh, like a more emphatic.
Yeah, because if it was just not talked about and it was there, that scene to me makes more sense. Like, it still does, because that's the most 90s thing ever. Stop unlocking the door. I'm trying to open it. Like, anyone who was growing up in the 90s and never had to deal with that, you're a liar. You're just a liar. Every family member was stupid and did it once, whether purposefully or on accident. I was kind of expecting either Drax, no, not Drax, Quill, Gamora, after she got her shit together, would say it, or Quill, when they finally got their hands on the Evolutionary. Or like when he's calling him a Skeletor, purple nurple looking, and I expected it to end with Mother. I'm like, no, it can't, because it's already used there. And then the other one, and my roommate brought it up when I was coming back from the movie theater. He's like, you know what would have been perfect? It's like, I don't mind where they used it, but it would have been perfect if the only thing that Groot said other than I am Groot was fuck.
That would have been hilarious.
But yeah, it was just open the fucking door. I knew there was gonna be one in there, but eventually came and I was just kind of like, whoa. Like, still weird.
Obviously that was the scene that got the biggest laugh at my theater.
It was up there. Like, the scenes, like, Mantis, you asshole, got a really big laugh at my theater. But yeah, that was really good. The look of the house was perfect. And like hitting him in the head with hitting the kid in the head with the dodgeball was really funny.
I like that scene better in context because I don't know if you know this, but like for the past couple months that I've been to the theater, all I've ever gotten was like that first trailer. So I got pretty annoyed with that scene.
I can imagine.
But in context, it works so much better.
Oh, absolutely. And then, like, what do you have to stay behind? I have to take it. You need to guard Rocket. Why do I need to stay behind? You need to take care of Drax. And then Gamora is just going to stay back to do whatever. And then, like, you know what to do with these. He gives them his guns, and then they fully expect to get stopped, which I'm like, you know what? That makes sense. They're not going to let the guns go in there. And they're going up that absurdly, unneededly large spaceship. I thought that was going to become a mech. That went on for so long. I thought it was going to be an actual, like, Spaceballs level stupid mech.
Or in our case, I know, take a shot. A Gurren size.
A Gurren sized mech. But, so I just thought that was going to happen. And then all of a sudden when it doesn't, it was almost better because it was just, the shit is so stupid. She's just like, and then you cut back and it's still, and they get everything. I didn't know how they were expecting or how those moments were going to work out, but he's waiting and stuff, and him bitching him out about what he's done to all these people. And when he finds out what he did to Rocket, about how he was going to just roast them all, and he kills them all in front of Rocket, which still I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, and he gets out of there. That shootout with Groot,
It's so good.
Oh my goodness gracious. It's not a trap, it's a face-off.
Rule of threes, by the way. That like they mastered it.
They did. They always have to. And then everything is done. And you just see the High Evolutionary hiding by the dumbest, like, they're gonna lose that fight. Oh, wait, the gunfire stopped. I'm gonna drop the wall. Shit. They won. And he's just like, don't kill me. Oh no, that'd be a waste. Well, that's one way to go about saving yourself, diving onto a dying planet. Like, I love how, and it makes me excited for Creature Commandos because James Gunn has basically just turned Groot into Swamp Thing.
Mm-hmm.
He had the wings, man.
Wings. Like I was not at all expecting that. I thought he would just like turn into a ball and like just crash on the ground, but the fact that he had wings was like, okay, I see what you're doing there.
Like, this is just preview at SFX testing for Rocket or for Swamp Thing. That's all it was. And like, I was expecting him to sprout like a thing and like kind of Mary Poppins his way down, and he didn't. It just that I was like, he's just Swamp Thing. But then they carved the thing out, all that, and in the ruckus, they have one crew on, one crew off. Why? Because we needed the screen, another thing to justify it. This version worked better because they don't have the communicators with the proper people. And yeah, I tell you, when he calls Kraglin and said, we need help getting Rocket back, and he's like, I need you to do something. I was not, under any set of circumstances, expecting him to bring Nowhere through a portal.
Me neither, but I welcome I welcome like big swings like that.
Yeah, but
And it kind of makes sense too, because the other spaceship was like roughly the same size. So they needed a way to get everyone onto one, like from one ship onto another.
Yeah. And so they keep having these moments where they keep thinking they're going to lose Rocket. And like throughout all of this, we have these moments where Gamora is getting better. And it finally starts clicking around here to where she's like, I can kind of understand why this happened with the other one. And then you get that moment where I was like, they are going to Deadpool 2 Rocket at the end of this movie. I just know it. And they have the moment where you can fly the blue skies together. And even Rocket was like, I'm ready to go. I want to be with my friends. And all that. And then the heart dying, he's like, yeah, later though.
Yeah, that's not the scene that broke me though. And
it's not.
we'll get to that in a second, but before that, you were talking about Gamora, and I wanted to bring up when she's looking at a picture of little Pete and
and
like
his mom and her dad.
Yeah. Still not the scene that broke me, but
oh, I know. Oh, we're gonna get there. Because they even did a weird callback to the comic book version of Peter Quill with the name of his dad.
Oh.
It's Jason and not Jason. But the name is the same name. His last name's just not of Spartax or whatever the crap it was. But you get her looking through all of his old things and that, and then just, yeah, but like him helping push on it. And then like Nebula hearing that Rocket was okay and all of them realizing that they're going to make it. although like Nebula trying to care for the kids and just you had the three people that do not know how to talk to people normally, all trapped trying to figure out how to talk to these kids. And I think
it's Drax that figures it out.
That figures it out. I think there was a scene that James Gunn was trying to formulate for a while, because all of them are just one screaming, one's trying to be the ha funny, and then James is just like, she liked when I made monkey noises, and then he starts clearly making noises of a robot. How are those monkey noises? And then he just knows a language. Did you ever think to ask me? Well, no, I guess not. And yeah, just knowing full well, and the team knows each other so well that they're going to fire at the outboard wall to tell the kids to move back. And just showing how well communicated that the team is. And that he's not running away from all this anymore. Rocket is fully ready to go. Like, man, I know it's just voice acting, but Bradley needs to win something for that.
He does.
And when they finally get on the ship, the stupid circus of events to get them to each other is the best. And I had to put it in my first line when I got onto Facebook to review it. There are some songs that have been used by James. And the only thing I will kind of give this movie crap about, I think it used too many songs.
You think so?
There's certain points where it's just like, turn the engine on, that song plays, it plays for 2 seconds. Cut back to this scene, characters waking up, plays a song for 2 seconds. And then there's like a couple of scenes where the song plays out the whole thing, like the one I'm about to talk to, but there was a bunch of them where to go to a scene for literally 10 seconds, he played a different song that he's kind of wanted to have on the soundtrack. Like on the previous Guardians films, there'd be like four songs throughout the entire 2.5 hour long film. This one felt like there was 13. You kind of get what I'm saying?
A little bit. I still just like, maybe it's just because this soundtrack has a lot more variety in terms of like the decades and even like genres, but I don't think I've ever once complained about about the use of music in these movies, but I do kind of understand, some songs will only play for like 2 seconds, and it's like, but I want to hear the rest of it.
every time they turned on the spaceship, and I think it's 4 times in the film, it played a different song. That's where I started being like, why are we? But when all of a sudden, and it was gonna piss me off again, when they all get together in that hall before the hallway scene, No Sleep Till Brooklyn by the Beastie Boys starts playing. I'm like, if you play that for 2 seconds, because he puts the headphones in and then they start talking. I'm like, if y'all cut it off and nothing happens, I'm going to be so pissed, because I finally, in the third movie, got a Beastie Boys reference, and then they have that hallway scene.
Yeah. I had a hot take in my written review that this hallway scene is like, if not better than what we've seen in the Netflix Daredevil, it's like
it's better.
Yeah, it rivals. It rivals.
Because the sheer amount of shit that is going on in that scene, and you can all comprehend it. That is my biggest rule for moments like this. Like a battle that's going on that has like 16 moving parts, and it like looks like it makes sense. One of the things that I hated about the ending of Age of Ultron, when they're all in that dome, all of that feels like they're posed. Like Cap does an over dramatic flip to do one punch on a robot that he was waiting to come down. This one has to come up perfectly to hit the uppercut from the Hulk, and it's in slow motion. I'm like, I get it. It's a comic book movie, but a lot of that was very posy. And here, this felt like they were struggling, and so much horseshit was happening, but I could understand all of it. And it's continuous. That thing doesn't take breaks. That was a solid 3 minutes of random horseshit that I wasn't confused in. And it was in a well-lit room with a shit ton of CGI that didn't use darkness to mask it.
Mm-hmm.
It's why I don't joke when I say James Gunn might be one of the best users of CGI ever.
Yeah, no, they had a really good team putting this film together. That it looks as well as it does with mostly visual effects. There are like there is like as much practical stuff here.
Oh yeah.
But
because James Gunn is a movie nerd. He wants to
Yeah.
have everything in there.
yeah, that's why that hallway scene sticks out so much.
Now, I have to ask you something because this worried me, and I vocally said it to my roommate when we were in the theaters. Because this movie was described as a farewell to this team and all these characters. And a hot trend that has happened in movies lately is that the main actor or an actor in these films would be like, I will come back for as many of these as they ask. I will keep going on as long as they keep making them. I'll be good. That'll be the only actor that will make that comment, and that actor will die in that movie. It's happened a lot lately.
Yeah.
The most recent one was Keanu Reeves. He's like, yeah, I'd make John Wick films until I'm dead if they want me to. Boom! And all of a sudden he's just like, well, now that everyone's seen the movie, I'm kind of like, we could do more, but why? It's like, John! We're like, Keanu, come on, man. And then one of them was Chris Pratt. He said that as long as they feel like they're good, I'll make more of them. And we'll get to that later. But I didn't know how they were going to handle some of these people. And in that moment where they go to split off and then Rocket's going to go get everybody else, he's like, wait, give me your communicator. I'm like, why do you need his communicator? Nebula, why on God's green earth do you need his communicator? So she can have 2 seconds to talk to Kraglin to say that she's going to park the ship and then never use the communicator again. I'm like, if you or Rocket die because of this, I will be pissed.
I am very thankful that nobody in the main cast died. Because I'm kind of sick of that being like
the only way they can be off is to die.
Well, not only that, but like death is like the only stakes of these big blockbusters. Like other things can be at stake. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be death.
Yep. Oh, I agree completely.
But not only that, not only that, but like Gunn, like does a fake out not only with Rocket giving Nebula his comm, but also Quill like freezing up in outer space.
Oh yeah. And that would have been a callback to when Yondu does it.
That
leads to that fucking scene with Adam in the finger. That got a giant laugh in my theater. The freaking imitation of that poster or like that old ancient freaking painting. It's just like, damn it. But you get the scene where Rocket and all those baby raccoons and everything, after they've saved all the children, and they're like, we can't hold on, everybody get back here. And all of a sudden he goes in and sees the wildlife habitat thing and sees that he is actually a raccoon and that this is based off of that. And like everyone's going to call him raccoon because he like a couple of times in the film says, I'm not a raccoon, stop calling me that. And then gets all go and he bitches out him and he gets in that fight. I was so happy. I was like, you can have him kill him on its own, but I want the team to beat him down without effort to show just how much of a pansy, useless, overpowering, young people weaker than him asshole that he is. And we got it.
And going back to what I said about this movie being at least partially like inspired by Lilo and Stitch, when High Evolutionary like says like, come back here P183 or whatever, and he says, my name is Rocket Raccoon.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. That was one of the best parts. I was like, he finally, that's what I mean about paying off in these films. Even little points where he finally calls himself Rocket Raccoon instead of just Rocket, which I'm fine with. If he all of a sudden just called himself Rocket, that's perfectly fine. But they like bring it up as a cool moment. It's not one of those, I saw the thing and he appeared and I cheered, blah, that they've turned all these Marvel movies that anyone that gets happy, those, that was an actual genuine moment where he's like, okay, I am actually this. That was a cool little thing that if they never would have brought up, no one would have been upset about. And they do all this and they just whoop his ass. And it's wonderful. And the part where I kind of agree with people where the movie was a little gruesome.
Where they rip off his face.
And not even fast. She just lightly peels it off and drops him. I'm like, they're going to say she saw something weird and not do anything. And then it goes back and you actually see that thing. I was like, oh!
Yeah.
And then it's like, I just wanted to make everything perfect. He's like, no, you didn't. You just thought nothing was perfect. And when he doesn't kill him, he basically Batman begins him. He's like, I'm not gonna kill you, but I ain't saving you. Sorry. And they all leave. And one of the biggest laughs my theater got was, no, we have to save them. We got all the children out. And I'm like, no, them.
Oh.
The moment with all the animals and all the horse shit coming out, like, what are we doing now? But yeah, the moment with Quill making sure everyone gets back, and then like he was going to actually had a plan to get saved back, and you see Groot overextending his limbs and freezing in space.
Oh,
I was like, yo, that's. Oh, I thought they were really doing it, and then you get just out of nowhere, and then pushes him back because again, Will had to be on screen again. He had his 10-minute quota this hour, and they have the big talk, which is what it's essentially narrowed down to after what might be my favorite exchange between Star-Lord and Gamora ever, where she just walks away and she's like, I bet we were fun, weren't we? You have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was so good. Oh, that was so good. But yeah, everyone, the consoling and figuring out the family part, showing that is what this always was a thing about family, which, having Vin Diesel in it makes it a shitload more sense now. Like Nebula bringing up that Drax was always meant to be a dad and not a destroyer. And Mantis needing to figure out where she was going to go. Part of me thought was like she was going to go with her brother. Part of me thought that's what she was going to say.
I thought that too for a split second, but then it made sense what you said. Like, I've always done what everyone else wanted me to do, but never what I wanted.
Yep. And then Jason or Peter was obviously like, I ignored home for however long. I need to go do this. And everybody getting to go out their separate ways. He's just like, so what, we're just done now? He's like, no, just someone else gets to get captain. That's going to be better at it than me. And that was just so good. And then the I love you guys. I was, what? That was so good.
So I guess we can talk about the scene, like the scene that genuinely broke me.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So I don't know who knows this already, but I was like around Peter Quill's age. Like I was 8 years old when I lost my grandpa on my dad's side. I was turning 10 the month that my grandpa on my mom's side passed away. So having lost both of them around the time that Peter was abducted by the Ravagers,
Mhm.
it drew something out of me seeing him coming home and as an adult getting the chance to reunite with um with his grandpa after so many years away. Like even talking about that is difficult.
It is. Um my grandpa on my dad's side passed when I was, ooh boy, when I was in third or fourth grade. And then my grandpa on my mom's side, who I changed my middle name for, was, oh man, I want to say when I was in fifth or sixth. And it was after a medical procedure that just made some stuff go wrong. Like I didn't have him around either. But yeah, just the and him knowing full well that he's never seen any of his actual family members after this.
Oh,
Like you don't get, and actually thinking about that where he's like, what the hell happened to my son or my grandson? I have no idea. He just ran out of a room after I yelled at him.
yeah.
That was the last scene they had together. No one thinks about that because his grandpa's only on screen for like 4 minutes. And getting to go back, and he's just like, I might have the wrong address. I'm looking for Jason Quill. And she's like, no, he's right back here. And he knows immediately that that's Peter.
Oh,
That's just like,
that
he's
was
like, no,
heartbreaking.
because that's either he expects him based off of what he remembers the dad looking like, or he's like, no one else is going to come and see me. That has to be Peter. That throws up a lot of insinuations. And it's fantastic because, and I think they throw you off with the girl being in there because it's like, that's either a different family, but I think that's was like his caretaker.
Probably. I don't remember like if we saw her in the first film, but
I honestly don't remember.
yeah. I think like I think that's someone that we meet for the first time here because obviously it's been what 30 plus years since Quill's been away.
I think.
I
Something
think I
like
think I
that.
think in the first film it's like they cut to like 34 years later. So
Yeah. Yeah. And just that was fantastic. You get that scene was spectacular. And then you get to see the new Guardians team, which, was there a reference, or is that little platinum silver haired girl someone?
um good question. I will have to defer to probably Koi, Jandro, or someone who knows.
Yeah, because it was Adam, which makes sense that they like did something with him. If the Guardians show up later, he'll actually have a purpose. Kraglin, Rocket, that little girl, and then which comes in the scene after the latter part of the scene, which genuinely I was like, whoa! Them talking about their favorite rock albums now that they've been or favorite song artists now that they've been listening to them with Rocket probably as homework.
I love that.
That was spectacular.
The girl when she brings up Britney Spears and Korn, I'm like, all right, respect.
I was like, yo, that's range. Because everyone else was pretty classic, what you'd expect. But then the fact that the Zune is just up to the 2000s, I'm like, yo, where's the Limp Biscuit? Where's the, like, come on. Then, yeah, you got that. And then the assignment that they need to do is to protect these people. And then obviously he's like, all right, Groot, let's go. And then all of a sudden you find out that they're all sitting on him and this giant, like, mecha-sized Groot walks up. I'm like, whoa! That was fantastic. And then I think, most cock tease end credit scene ever was the one, and I don't know if I heard the dialogue wrong, where it's like, was he talking about the fact that he didn't want to mow the lawn?
I think so. I'll have to go back and watch the scene again.
Because I thought I heard him say that someone else didn't want to, and then they just kept eating, and then that person was going to walk into frame. And I was like, no, they're just sitting here eating cereal. Why?
By the way, shout out to Magic Spoon. Like, that's the first time I've seen that in like an actual mainstream Hollywood blockbuster.
That was weird. But then, yeah, and then everyone was like, what? And I was like, okay, I get it. I get why they did that. And everyone was like, what was the point of that scene? It was stupid. I'm like, that's the point. This is something Peter never got to have. A quiet moment eating cereal with his grandpa. That's it. And it's one of the things that oddly, that scene got to me a little bit. Because there'd never be a situation where I got to tell you about this. But anyone that knows me, I am one of the biggest Cinnamon Toast Crunch whores on the planet. I could eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and never get sick of it. And I will fight anyone to the death that is the best cereal ever made. I only ever ate Cinnamon Toast Crunch because of my grandpa on my dad's side. Whenever he came home from the nursing home to be with us kids at the house, he would sit down for breakfast with me and eat Cinnamon Toast Crunch and pour sugar over it. It was the most loaded thing I ever ate as a kid. And then they would send me back to my parents' house. And yeah, so that was just like, that was a cool little, I was like, oh man. And then they have the moment where it's like, you got to have a quiet moment as a normal person. And that was it. And then the thing that made me weird about this, where it's like, they did not say the Guardians will return. They said the legendary Star-Lord will return.
That is weird. I'm not sure what that means other than like, you know, the fact that Star-Lord is a legend now in the galaxy. And as part of that that Twitter Q&A I mentioned earlier, James Gunn did say that he had a conversation with Feige about the Guardians.
Mm-hmm.
He's only answering questions that are yes or no.
He obviously can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what the future entails for the Guardians, and at least right now, I don't care.
Yeah.
I am perfectly satisfied with what James Gunn has done over like the past decade.
I am too. Absolutely. It's everything I've wanted. And like I said, this is not just my favorite MCU trilogy. This is genuinely one of the best trilogies I've watched in years.
I have called this the best. I have said this stands among the best trilogies of the 21st century.
Yeah.
So
there's not a bad film in it. There's not like a below 8 in it. It's really good all the way around.
Like you said this earlier, Captain America, Steve Rogers is one of my favorite characters. And while I do love the 3 movies in which he has top billing, I think the Guardians movies as a trilogy are better than the Cap trilogy.
Yep. And I think part of that might nail down to the Guardians, especially 2. Like, I got out of the theater and I was crying and called my surrogate dad. Like, and he had just got done seeing it too, so we knew, because I was like, I don't want to spoil this for you, but I need you to know how much I love you and I appreciate you. And you'll know when you see it. And he had just told me that he's seen it and that I love you too. And like the like, obviously, I'm not going to say it's emotional manipulation makes me like these more, but a stronger connection definitely helps. But these movies, in my opinion, have the most style to them. Like, they feel like they're allowed to do more because it's James doing them.
Yep.
They're definitely, you can tell that they have only moments you would see in Guardians films. Like the body horror stuff with Nebula, some of the backstory stuff with Rocket and all that, and just it's yeah, there's still some stuff that you see in regular MCU movies and things like that, but it's just James's movies feel different.
To paraphrase what I said in my Letterboxd review, what makes the Guardians movies stand out among the rest of the MCU is that he knows how to straddle that line between, playing in someone else's sandbox while retaining his personality.
Yep.
Like you you could not mistake these for anyone else but James Gunn. And yet they still fit seamlessly within the larger tapestry.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot agree more. But yeah, I'm going to say that I still think Guardians 2 is my favorite, but not by much. Because I think that Guardians 2 was a tighter knit film than this one. I feel like they had a lot going on, which was not bad. I don't feel like it lost itself anywhere. I just feel like 2 was more focused than this one was, and I think that puts it a little bit more above because it was a lot more lasered in on what it wanted to do and had less side plots, so it really focused in on that one thing. But I would say 2, 3, then 1 for me.
I'm not ready to say that yet because I want to see this movie a second time just to iron out the recency bias. But for me, I would probably go 1, 3, 2, and the differences are minuscule.
Yep.
Two grew on me, especially the second time I saw it, where I really understood what James was going for. I still think that that first movie is a revelation for the MCU, for the the entire genre of comic book movies, and even just sci-fi in general.
Oh, absolutely.
But this one definitely took it took the biggest swings. It had the most satisfying payoffs. Mm-hmm. I'm just not sure if I'm ready to call it the best of the trilogy yet. But the trilogy as a whole is definitively the best of the MCU.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah. Go see it. We really liked it. A lot.
Yes.
But yeah, let's get on out of here. Mike, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You can escape, so do we.
And you can find me ever at Organoid Zero, mainly on Twitch and YouTube. Anyone watching this, wondering why I have been streaming this whole last week. I have had cold sore, other thing issues that I could barely talk up until this point. I have been swishing salt water, all sorts of things to where it almost literally killed me to eat. So that's why I have not been streaming, and I'm finally feeling up for it today. But yeah, I'll be back next week, finally finishing Control and hammering that out. And then I'm not sure what I'm going to get into next, but I will have something starting new. I'm partially thinking of bringing something retro back that I was playing for a while back before, but we'll see. All right. Until next time, we'll see you all later.